OET Linguistics Institute.
Again, once you have booked the exam and once the exam is near, there is no need for any kind of exam jitters. All right, so we call it exam jitters. That basically means exam nervousness. All right, so it is actually not going to help you out in any manner. So just make sure that you are building yourself up. All right, so mistakes and all will happen. Okay, mistakes will happen even the day before the exam. Okay, you are going to make mistakes. All right, so when that happens, you have to you know make sure that you are building yourself up. All right, so building yourself up rather than breaking yourself down. All right, so this is one very important tip that I have to give to those who are writing the exam very soon or those who are about to book the exam. All right, you have to understand that perfectionism is actually not something that you have to strive over here, right? So I'm not a very big believer in getting a perfect score. Okay, so that is not what we want. What we want from you is the effort. All right, that is smart work. You have to prepare very smartly. Okay, you have to, be a strategist over here and just make sure that you are putting in the effort. Okay, so you have 24 hours a day. Everyone's 24 hours is different, right? Some have duties, don't have duties, some have home responsibilities, some don't have home responsibilities. So everyone's 24 hours is different. So some may be able to dedicate 5 hours per day, some may be able to dedicate only 20 minutes per day. That does not matter. So even if you're spending 5 hours per day, even if you're spending just 20 hours per day, just make sure that you are putting in the effort, and you just have to strategize yourself and make sure that you're working smartly. That is, it has to be result oriented preparation. You must not prepare for the OET for the sake of you know preparing. Oh, I have booked the exam, so I have to practice one listening today. I have to practice one reading today. I have to read like this. I have to listen like this. That is not the way you have to prepare for the OET. You have to prepare for the OET keeping your result in mind. Okay, so even if it's just 20 minutes per day or if it is 5 hours per day, make sure that you're working for the results. And mistakes are going to happen, and don't be a perfectionist. Right, so that is something that you have to really shift yourself from that mindset, and you should be really proud of the effort that you're putting in. Right. So, so Rina, like since your exam is fast approaching, you know, build yourself up. Okay. So again, so today we're going to discuss listening part C, which is one of the most toughest components of the occupational English test. So you will be making a lot of mistakes. There will be a lot of challenges. There will be a lot of struggles. But despite all those things, just make sure that you're pushing yourself smartly, strategically. And when a mistake happens, instead of breaking yourself down, instead of criticizing yourself, instead of thinking, oh, this is too tough for me, this is just too challenging for me, or I keep repeating the same thing. So instead of criticizing yourself like that, try to build yourself up. Right. All right. So let's talk about listening part C. All right. So today's topic of discussion is listening part C. Right. So let's understand the different parts of listening. So we have listening part A, right? And we have listening part B as well. Okay, so listening part A we have, listening part B we have, and all these parts are entirely different. So in listening part A, we have patient consultations, right? So you'll be listening to patient consultations. That is the type of audios you get over there. In listening part B, you'll be getting workplace related conversations, right? So it is all workplace extracts that we say, right? And when it comes to listening part C, you need to understand here it is a presentation, right? It is a presentation or it is an interview, right? Now, this is where the differentiation comes, right? So listening part A, that is patient consultations, you need to understand that there will be one main speaker and there will be a second speaker. Right. So usually the main speaker is the patient. Okay. Most of the times, since the patient consultation in listening part A, the patient will be speaking, and that is the main speaker. So the answer usually comes from the main speaker is the patient. Right. And over here in workplace related extracts, it is usually like, patient handovers, team briefings, instructions. So these type of conversations over here. So in listening part B also, there is going to be two speakers. All right. So in 99% of the cases, listening part B also, there is two speakers over there. That is one main speaker as well as one second speaker over here. Right. Now, before I come to listening part C, I just want to say what roles these two speakers actually play in both part A and part C, part B and C as well. So the main speaker always gives the answer, right? So the main speaker, so from the main speaker, we get the answer, but the second speaker over here, right? So the second speaker also plays an important role. From the second speaker, we don't get the answer. Okay, we never get the answer from the second speaker. But what this person does is they give something called as trigger responses, right? They give something called as trigger responses, which usually shapes the answer. Right. So this is how part A and part B works. So in part A and part B, you need to understand that there is a main speaker from whom we get the answer. And then there is a second speaker who gives trigger responses. And this person usually shapes the answer. All right. So that is they ask trigger questions. They say certain things that triggers the answer from the main speaker. Right. However, when it comes to listening part C, the scenario is completely different, right? So let's talk about listening part C for a moment. So listening part C, over here, we have total of 12 multiple choice questions, right? You have 12 multiple choice questions. And here you need to understand, even if it is an interview or if it is a presentation, okay, if it's an interview or a presentation, there is something called just give me a second. Yeah, there is always a healthcare expert over here. Right, there is an expert who is the main speaker. Okay, so that is there is a healthcare expert who is the main speaker, both whether it's a presentation or whether an interview over here. Now, in listening part C, the challenge is this. Usually, the expert, that is the main speaker over here, is the highlight of the audio. That means what I'm trying to say is this person over here is an individual, right? So we have an healthcare expert, a researcher, a scientist, okay, so who has so many years of experience on one medical topic, and they are giving a lecture, that is a presentation, or they are giving a interview. So in those cases, as an individual, okay, so in listening part A, there is no individual person there. Listening part B also, there is no individual who's an expert over here. But in listening part C, we have an expert, okay, who has a lot of years of experience. And based on those experience, okay, so based on their medical experience, what do they have? What does this person have? They have their own opinions, right? See, for example, you are a medical professional. When you are a medical professional who has several years of experience on one particular medical topic, you will have your own opinion, right? You will have your own opinion. You will have your own belief systems, right? You will have your own attitudes, right? You will have your own feelings. You will have your own feelings about one particular medication or one particular treatment or one particular group of patients on one particular medical topic, right? Now, this is what you have to understand about listening part C. In listening part C, you are required to identify the opinion of a person. Okay, without them having to say, this is my opinion, this is my suggestion, this is my recommendation. Just by listening to them speak, you must be able to understand, okay, their opinion on this particular topic is like so and so. Okay, their belief system about this particular thing is like so and so. Okay, their attitudes, that their feelings, okay, is like so and so. Okay, and for this, what skill do you need? There are two skills that you need. The first skill that you need is tone awareness, right? The first skill that you need over here is tone awareness. And the second skill that you need over here is something that we call as your inference skills. Right. Now, what do I mean by tone awareness and inference skills? So tone awareness is something that I have repeated several times, right? See, you need to understand we are talking about a medical expert, right? So they have their own feelings about certain things. So they may be, skeptical. Skeptical basically means what? They are doubting something, right? That is, they are not really believing a new medication. They may be skeptical about a treatment. Okay, they may be, optimistic. What's the meaning of optimistic? The opposite of skeptical. That is, they are positive. That is, they are supporting that particular thing, right? And similarly, they may be concerned. Okay, they may be, anxious, okay, about certain things over here. Okay, again, similarly, we have certain emotions and feelings. They may be doubtful over here, all right, and they may be supportive of certain things, like this. Now, some questions will ask you, what is this person suggesting? What is this person recommending? What is the right speaker thinking about this particular thing? So when it comes to those type of questions, you definitely need to have the skill called tone awareness. That is, you are listening to what they are saying. Okay, you're listening to what they are saying, but at the same time, you're also giving importance to how they are saying it. Okay, how they are saying is also very important. See, for example, when a person is not supporting one new medication, there has been a new medication in the market. There are some people who are supporting it, but this main expert, this main speaker over here, they are not really supporting it. So when they are going to be speaking on that, they are going to express skepticism. They are going to, that is, they are going to express that they are doubtful about that particular new medication. So when they are speaking about that, the tone in which they speak will reflect their lack of support. Right. So for other cases, if a person is happy, there's a new medication and they are very excited about it, they are very enthusiastic about it, they are very supporting of that one particular medication, then the tone in which they speak will definitely reflect, their support they have to that particular medication. Right. So that is what we call as tone awareness. Right. Now, that is for that, you need to listen very carefully and you need to listen to what type of words they are using, what type of phrases they are using, and how they are, not what they are saying, but exactly how they are expressing that particular message. That is what we call as tone awareness. Right. Now, what is the other thing that I mentioned? It is called as inference skills. So, inference skills basically means drawing your own conclusion. Own conclusion. Right. That means it requires you to self-reflect. Right. So there is a need for you to basically read a question, understand what the question is asking you, and then when you are going to be listening, when you're going to be listening to that particular audio section, after you listen it, you have to reflect on it. That is, you have to recollect. Small memory recall is necessary, and you have to reflect on what exactly they said, and then you have to come to your own conclusion. Okay, that is what we call as inference skills, right? So these two skills, okay, so it's not about it is not, so usually students think listening part C is exactly like listening part B. So in listening part B also, what do we have? We have multiple choice questions, but in listening part B, we don't have these questions. We don't have opinions, we don't have belief systems, we don't have attitudes, we don't have own feelings. So in listening part C, there is not much need for tone awareness and inference, because there is no medical expert over there. But in listening part C, that definitely there is. Okay, so that is where students usually struggle. Okay, so in listening part C, you have to be very good at tone awareness, that is identifying the tone of the speaker, and also inferring, that is when you listen to that particular audio section, you are able to come to your own conclusion. Right. Now, that being said over here, I'm going to make all of you practice one entire section of listening, right? And then we will take the most difficult questions from there, and one particular question we'll discuss in detail. Now before I actually go into the practice over here, I want to, tell you how you have to listen. Okay, there is a method, right? See, there is a technique over here. What's the meaning of strategy? Strategy basically means an exam technique, right? So it is not simply blindly listening. Okay, that is when you are listening to an part C question or part C audio, what is your duty there? Your duty over there is to listen to find the answer. Okay, so always understand you are not listening to understand. Okay, so are you listening to the audio to understand what they're saying? No, you are listening to the audio to find the answer. Right. So this is what you need to understand when it comes to multiple choice questions. The reason why you're listening to the audio is to not listen to the British accent. You're not there to listen to the American accent. You're not there to listen to the Australian accent. You're not there to listen to the vocabulary they're using. You're not there to understand the phrases they're using. Your duty over there is entirely to find the answers to the 12 questions. Right. So your entire technique, your entire strategy must be to find the answer. Right. So this is where you have to strategize every single thing. Now, there is just one single word that you need to keep in your mind. Okay. So when it comes to OET listening, okay, when it comes to listening, especially listening part C, which is that we'll be discussing today, the one single word that you have to keep in your mind is anticipation, right? That is anticipation. That is, even when you're listening to the audio, okay, when you're listening to the audio, you must basically anticipate, okay, this is the question, and the question is asking me this, and therefore when I'm going to listen to the audio, this is something that I have to anticipate. Right. So when you're listening to the audio, your brain should tell you, okay, I am waiting for this kind of an answer. Okay. So you must know, okay, you must know exactly, you know, to what you're waiting, to what you're supposed to listen to. That is what we call as anticipation. That is, and for anticipation, okay, there are three things that comes under anticipation. So that is something that I need to type over here. See, before, right? Before the audio begins, okay, before that particular audio of that particular question starts, the first thing, again, this is something that I may have repeated several times. You need to have clarity, right? You need to have clarity. I'll explain to you what that is. And then when the audio is playing, that is during the audio, you need to have focus, right? During the audio, you must know, you must have absolute focus and absolute concentration, right? That is, you must be very clear. You must know exactly, okay, this is what I am supposed to anticipate. This is what I'm anticipating. That clarity you must have before the audio begins, right? And then when the audio is playing, under that you know what exactly you're anticipating, and for that you have to have focus. You must have laser sharp focus. And then after the audio is done, right? After the audio is done, you need to have logic. Okay, because you are supposed to choose the right answer option. So using your logical deduction skills, using your reasoning skills, you have to eliminate the incorrect answer options and choose the right answer option. Right. And obviously, there are other three steps as well. That is, I want to say, so I'll just write it down over here. So there are three steps when it comes to every multiple choice question. So step number one is what we call as comprehension of the question, right? Step number two is what we call as retention of the question. And step number three is what we term as deduction or detection, right? Comprehension, retention, and detection. So we'll be discussing that in detail quite soon. So what do I mean by comprehension? Comprehension basically means understanding the question, understanding the stem of the question. STEM. And so STEM basically means the focal point. Okay, so what exactly is the question asking you? That is what we call a STEM or focal point of the question. And you really have to understand that. And based on that understanding only, you will have clarity and anticipation, right? And then what we call as retention. Retention is basically registering that information to your memory. So once you have read everything, once you have understood everything, you must remember the question. You must not forget what the question is asking you, because if you forget the question, then everything is pointless, right? And then comes detection. Detection, that is choosing the right answer. So here, since everything is multiple choice questions, you have to bring in your elimination strategy. That is, there may be easy questions, there may be tough questions, there may be medium difficulty questions. So here you have to bring your elimination strategy and eliminate the incorrect answer options. Right. All right. So now we're going to play a listening part C or audio today. So everyone take your notebook with you. I need everyone to have a notebook. I need every one of you over here to have a pen or a pencil with you, right? So keep your pen, pencil, notebook ready and your listening skills very sharp. Now remember when I told you, I'll give you 90 seconds time. I'll give you 90 seconds time to read the questions. And after that time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you the audio and you have to be extremely attentive and try to find the answers to the questions, right? All right. So everyone get your pen, pencil ready. I'll give you like maybe 1 minute for it. After 1 minute, we'll continue. Maybe a small issue here. Cox. All right, just give me a second.
Occupational English Test. Practice Test 3. Listening Test.
Solutions.
This test has
Definitely not here.
Occupational English Test. Practice Test 3.
In order to itself, what can result
Dr. Keith Gardner giving a presentation about
This lack of awareness extends such as morphine, that is, patients and have access to palliative. Well, the initial result, despite these, is not enough from the perspective of an organisation which represents the need of others is a care.
All right. 21, 29. Okay. All right. So let me just take the question. Listening. Robert Miller. All right, so I'm going to give you 90 seconds time. That is 15 seconds per question, right? So everyone read the extract questions over here. So you're basically listening to a geriatrician, a person who takes care of elderly patients, right? Geriatrics, called Dr. Claire Cox, giving a presentation. Okay, so who's the healthcare expert over here? The healthcare expert is a person called Dr. Cox, and she's a geriatrician, right? So she has several years of experience about geriatrics, and she is giving the main topic of discussion over here is end of life care for people with dementia, that is memory loss. Okay, so people with dementia, and there is not much hope. Okay, these people, they are towards the end of their life, that is end of life care. Okay, so they are basically in the last few days of their life. Okay, and they are also suffering from dementia. Okay, so this person over here has so many years of experience in this particular topic, and they are going to be speaking on this. And the questions over here, see, for example, what problem does Dr. Cox identify concerning dementia patients, right? So she has, according to her experience, there is one problem that she is trying to convey to us. So here you have to, think from the speaker's perspective, right? The speaker, that is the opinions, the attitudes, the feelings, the suggestions, the recommendations. Okay, that is what you have to listen. So for that, you definitely need tone awareness skills. Okay, now see, problem. Okay, so when a person is talking about a problem, they are not going to be very happy about it. That is, so they will speak in a tone that expresses, that shows, okay, this is a very big problem. That is, there is a concern. So the tone in which they speak will be a concerning tone, right? So like that, you should have your tone awareness ready. You must have your inference skills ready. That is, you have to listen to that particular audio section and then reflect on it and then pinpoint the right answer. Okay. All right. So, yeah, your time starts now. So I'll give you 15 seconds time per question. So you can start reading. Okay, ready? All right, so just give me 1 second. So just read the first two questions. once again, and I'll play you the audio very soon. A, B, C. All right. So let's play the audio now. Okay, so I'm going to start playing the audio, so listen very carefully.
My name's Dr. Claire Cox. I'm a geriatrician specialising in palliative care. My topic today is an increasingly important issue: end-of-life care for dementia patients. The care of dementia patients presents certain problems. Dementia is a terminal illness and is the third highest cause of death in Australia. But dementia is different from other such conditions. It has an unpredictable trajectory, and there can be difficult issues around patients' mental capacity, decision-making and communication. But, in spite of an equal need for palliative care services, dementia patients don't always fit the traditional model of such care. Families often suffer distress because they feel unable to ensure that their loved one's wishes are being respected, or just don't know what that person wanted because the discussion wasn't held early enough. There is therefore a clear need for well-funded, patient-centred palliative dementia care that's available when and where it's needed. I do a lot of work with Dementia Australia, an organisation which represents the needs of Australians living with all types of dementia, and of their families and carers. It also campaigns on dementia issues and funds research. Dementia Australia decided it was the right time to examine the issue of end-of-life dementia care from the perspective of the consumer as well as from that of the healthcare professional. It's a timely initiative. We have plenty of anecdotal evidence but not enough hard facts about what's going wrong and why the system's failing. But the current situation isn't all bad. Despite the issues I've mentioned, I've heard some wonderful examples of how palliative care has made a big difference to people's lives. Things can obviously go badly wrong if this isn't handled well. But in the right circumstances, people with dementia can reach the end of their lives peacefully and with dignity. Dementia Australia commissioned researchers to conduct a survey on the end-of-life issues affecting dementia patients. The survey covered both care professionals, that's doctors, nurses and others working with dementia patients, as well as family member carers. The interest was overwhelming, with more than 1,000 responses from around Australia. But what do the results tell us? Well, the initial results confirmed what we've heard about access to appropriate end-of-life care. It was obvious immediately that there was a striking gap between the perceptions of care professionals and family member carers about end-of-life dementia care. For instance, while 58% of family member carers said that they didn't have access to palliative care specialists and 68% didn't have access to hospices, 3/4 of care professionals indicated that people with dementia in their area do in fact have access to palliative care. This begs the question of whether consumers, that is patients and family member carers, might not be aware of services that are available. Another notable finding of the survey was that care professionals often lack knowledge of the legal issues surrounding end-of-life care. Some reports indicate that care professionals are at times reluctant to use pain medications, such as morphine, because of concerns about hastening a patient's death. However, access to appropriate pain relief is considered to be a fundamental human right, even if death is earlier as a secondary effect of medication. Our survey found that 27% of care professionals were unsure about this, or didn't believe that patients are legally entitled to adequate pain control, if it might hasten death. So perhaps it isn't surprising then that a quarter of former family member carers felt that pain wasn't adequately managed in end-of-life care. This lack of awareness extends beyond pain management. The statistics on refusing treatment were particularly shocking. Almost a third of care professionals were unaware that people have the right to refuse food and hydration, and 1 in 10 also thought refusal of antibiotics wasn't an option for patients in end-of-life care. How can we ever achieve consumer empowerment and consumer-directed care if the professionals are so ill-informed? There's a clear need for greater information and training on patients' rights. Yet over a third of care professionals said they hadn't received any such training at all. It's obvious that end-of-life care planning is desirable. Discussing and documenting preferences is clearly the best way of minimising the burden of decision-making on carers and ensuring patients' wishes are respected. Advanced care planning is essentially an insurance policy that helps to protect our patients in case they lose their decision-making capacity. Even though a patient might believe that loved ones will have their best interests at heart, the evidence shows that such people aren't that good at knowing what decisions those they love would make on complex matters such as infection control and hydration. So before I go on to...
Now look at Extract 2. Extract 2. Questions 37 to 42. You hear a hospital doctor called Dr. Keith Gardner.
All right, so that was the end of this particular thing over here. All right, so now I'm going to show you the answer key. All right, so I hope everyone has written the answers 31, 32 to 36. All right, so it was a slightly challenging audio. I'm not saying it was extremely easy. So some of you may get 6 out of 6. Some of you may get 0 out of 6, right? So that does not matter. Okay, so there is no competition over here who gets the highest scores, who gets the lowest scores and all. As I told you, did you give your best effort? If you can truly say to yourself, I tried to read the question, I tried to understand the question, I tried to comprehend the question, I tried my best to register, that is, retain the memory of the question to my mind. I tried to listen from the speaker's perspective. I tried my best to eliminate the incorrect answer options. So if that effort came from you, that means you already have succeeded, right? So it does not matter whether you get 0 out of 6 or 6 out of 6. That is not very much important to me. But for the sake of preparation phase, I'm going to show you the answer key right now, right? Now, this is the answer key, right? 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Now, some of you may have got the right answer and it could be a lucky guess, right? So again, we have to be a little bit proper over here. So if you found an answer to be right, and if it was a lucky guess, consider it as a wrong answer, right? Consider it as a wrong answer because luck is not really going to help you out on your examination day ultimately. Okay, it was your skill and hard work, right? So you have the answers over here, 31 to 36. So if at all there was a lucky guess from your side, that is, you did not find the answer 100% certainly, it was a small lucky guess, I would suggest to mark it as a wrong answer. All right, so there is no need to inform me how much you got. I'll give you some time to actually score yourself, right? So out of 6, see how much right answers you got. Okay. All right. So 31 is A, 32 is A, 31 A, B, 32 A, 33 B, 34C, 35A, and 36B. Okay, so now I want all of you to choose two of the most difficult answers, right? So I'm going to launch a poll right now. Okay, so what I want every one of you to do is choose two of the most toughest questions. So 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Choose two or maybe even three, which you found to be the most challenging. I want almost everyone to vote over here. So depending upon what you vote, the session will move forward. There are three more students who have to vote, two more remaining. Two more of you. Yes. All right, fine. Okay, so all five of you have voted over here. So I'm going to give you 5 more seconds if you need to change your mind or choose any one option. All right. All right, so can you see the scores over here? So I think according to the vote, the 32nd question, as well as the 34th question. So 32 and 34 happens to be the most challenging question. Okay. All right, so I'll just show you this screenshot over here. All right, so as you can see, the 32nd question was the most difficult for most of you. And we have 80% of you chose the 32nd question, and then we have the 34th question as well. All right. So we'll do one thing. We will discuss in detail. Okay. We'll discuss again. All the recorded lectures is already available for you through the app. Okay. So today we are going to give you the right strategies. Okay. The right mindset on how to process the information. So we'll do one thing. So every one of you has chosen the 32nd question as the most tough, most of you. So we'll discuss that one question over here and try to understand why it was challenging. Okay, so imagine that you're all in the examination hall. Okay, you are all in the examination hall and you have been given this particular question paper, right? And you got 90 seconds time to read the questions over here. That is 90 seconds means per question you can get about 15 seconds time. Okay, 15 multiplied by 6 is 90. So for each question, you can spend about 15 minutes time. Now let's read the 32nd question, the most challenging question for most of you over here. So the question is this: why did Dementia Australia? Right, okay, so this you need to understand what is Dementia Australia. So here they're talking about an organization, right? So there is an organization, so that is why it has been written in slanted letters, right? So there is a name of an organization like WHO. Okay, so what is WHO? World Health Organization, right? So we have ISRO. What is ISRO? Indian Space Research. Like that, Dementia Australia is a name of an organization, right? Now the speaker over here, okay, so who's the main speaker? Dr. Cox. Okay, she is an expert on geriatrics who's dealing with dementia patients predominantly. Now, this person is saying something about this organization. So the question is, why did Dementia or Australia decide? So this organization over here, it has taken a decision, right? Decide to examine the issue of end of life care. All right. Now over here, issue basically means there is an issue, there is a problem over here, some kind of a problem, there is an issue over here. Okay. And this organization, it took a decision to actually examine it. All right. Now your duty over here is to find out why. Okay. That is what you are supposed to find out. Why exactly did this particular 1 second. Yeah, why did this particular organization decide to evaluate this particular issue over here? Now, this is what we call as the stem of the question, right? That is, your stem basically means your duty over here. Right. So what is your duty over here? Your duty over here, again, remember and told you it is all about anticipation, right? So you really have to comprehend the question. Okay. So why are you listening to the audio? Okay. You're listening to the audio to understand what was the reason. Okay. What was the reason that made this organization examine this issue? Understand? Why always basically means there is a reason over here. Now, see, you ask me, why did you not take my class yesterday? So I was not able to take the class yesterday, right? So you will ask me, sir, why didn't you take the class? So what will I say? The reason was I was not feeling well, right? So why always means a reason over here. So you have to understand. So just by reading the question, you have to tell to yourself, okay, my duty over here, okay, my purpose over here, the stem of the question is to understand one specific reason actually motivated this organization to examine this issue. And my duty is to understand what was the reason. Right. Now, as let's see, take a look into the answer options. So right now, what we are doing over here is something that we call as the keyword analysis. Okay. So what we're doing over here is keyword analysis. That is, first and foremost, you must be able to, identify the keywords. So what are keywords? Keywords are those words that anchor the question and the answer, right? There are certain words that supports the question. There are certain words that anchors the question or the answer. So those type of words are what we call as keywords. So first and foremost, you must be having the ability to identify the keywords, and then you have to bring in your keyword analyzing skills. So on your examination day, if you're writing the pen and paper based test with your pencil or a pen, you have to like underline the keywords like this. If you're writing the computer based OET, you have the option to highlight the words like this. So you can highlight the words, right? Now let's do the keyword analysis in answer options A, B, and C. What is answer option A? There was a lack of reliable information on it. Now, what is this particular it referring to? The number of stories about poor care made it urgent. There were enough data on which to base. Okay, now over here, my question to you is, what is this it referring to? So you need to understand over here, it is a pronoun, right? What is it over here? It is a pronoun. And what is a pronoun? It is a word that replaces a noun over here. So this word it over here, it is basically replacing one particular noun, one particular information. So my question to you is, what information is being replaced by the word it in answer option A and answer option B? These are the foundations. Why did Dementia Australia decide to examine the issue of end of life dementia care? No one? I'll give you, if you want, you can unmute yourself or type the answer in the chat box. Yes. All right. So I think Deepika has got it right. No, it is not correct. Issue of end of life care. The answer is too long. What
It
is
it is organization that is
uh,
Dementia Australia.
Dementia Australia? So you're telling me Dementia Australia is the word it?
There was a lack of information on it.
No, I'm sorry. That is not the answer.
Hmm.
Deepika's answer is partially correct only. Is there anyone else who would like to give an attempt? What is the word? Huh?
Issue.
No, it is not the issue as well. Yeah, I think the answer over here is this one, this particular portion. So I'll just put in the box over here. The end of life dementia care. This is the noun, not the issue. Okay, so the issue is not the word it over here. Okay, it is not this organization also. Okay, now try to read like this. There was a lack of reliable information on dementia care. Now you read like this. Okay, so This is the full. Okay, so the word it over here, it is replacing end of life dementia care. Here also, it is doing the same thing. Okay, the number of stories about poor care made dementia care urgent. Right. So that was the reason. Okay. So this is the reasons over here. So what is answer options A, B, and C? These are all possible reasons, right? These are all possible reasons over here. Okay. So these are all the possible reasons why they took a decision to examine. Okay. So there was a problem. There was some kind of a problem when it comes to providing care for dementia patients, right? And these are all the possible reasons that motivated them to take this decision. So these are all the basics. Okay. You have to know what is the pronouns replacing. You need to know what are the keywords over here. So that foundations you really have to build up, and only then we can actually expect to get a really good score over here. Right. So let's do the keyword analysis of answer option A. So here answer option A is there was a lack of reliable information on dementia care. Okay, there was a lack. There is very little reliable information. That is very little dependable information. Reliable basically means what? Dependable. Right. So for example, if you call, so we have a lot of prank calls, right? So, we have a lot of prank calls that, that goes to, police stations as well as media outlets and all. So the first and foremost, they will actually try to understand whether this information is a prank or not, right? There's a lot of prank calls over here. So that's the thing. So similarly, if you go to YouTube, you can see there's a lot of information about the OET. But most of the YouTube channels over there, they don't have the right kind of things. Okay, that is the reliable information. There is very, very little. Only authentic sources are extremely rare over in those cases. So answer option A is telling what motivated them to examine this issue is that there was very little dependable information on dementia care. Answer option B, the number of stories. Okay, there were some stories over here. The number of stories, that is quantity. So here they're talking about a quantity over here, right? Number of stories basically means a quantity over here. Number is always meaning a quantity. The number of stories about poor care made it urgent. Okay, so when it comes to dementia care, okay, that is the care given to dementia patients were very, very poor, and so much number of poor care stories came out. Okay, so that motivated them to take a decision to examine this issue urgently. Right. Let's see what is answer option C. There were enough data. Okay, there was enough data. Data means information on which to base an effective care plan. So here they're telling they had enough information. That is, their foundation was good. Okay, that is, their foundation was good to build an effective, that is, a good care plan. Right. So this is what they're trying to say. So like this, you really have to understand what each of the answer options are telling. So answer option C, there was enough data. That means they had enough information. That is, they had enough foundation, okay, to build an effective care plan. So that was the reason why they decided to examine this issue of dementia care. Right. So this is what we call as keyword analysis. Right. Now, let's just do it very quickly, because on your examination day, how much time do you have? You have just 90 seconds before the audio plays. So that means you have just 15 seconds time. So within 15 seconds, how can you do all these things, effectively? So I'll tell you why. So for this, you need to keep one thing in your mind. You have to know what the focal points are. Focal points of the questions as well as the answers. Right? You need to know what are the focal points of the questions as well as the answer options. So that will make it a little bit more quicker, right? So imagine that you're all in the examination hall. You have exactly 15 seconds time, right? When you get 15 seconds time, how exactly do you have to read this? Now, I'm not going to say that you have to hurry. That is a very, very wrong strategy, right? I'm not telling you you have only 15 minutes time so that you have to hurry over here. That is not you have to do. You have to read with clarity. Okay, that means you can very comfortably. Okay, so I would say not hurry. So I think this word will be a little bit more easy to keep in your mind, right? So when you are supposed to read, so even though you have just 15 seconds time, make sure that you're reading it with as much comfort as possible, right? So this is one very, very important thing that I have to say to you. Okay, don't hurry yourself, but try to read it in a very cool, calm, composed, focused mind. Right. So when you get your time over here, read like this. Okay. Why did dementia Australia? Okay. So here the first keyword is why. So that means immediately your brain should tell you, okay, so here my duty over here is to find the reason. So there is one reason over here. That means answer options A, B, and C. These are all possible reasons. Right. So as soon as you read the word that, you have to be able to make that connection. Right. Now, why did Dementia Australia? Okay, there was an organization called Dementia Australia over here. Decide to examine the issue of end of life care. So why did they decide to examine? Okay, so they took a decision to examine something, and this is the topic over here. Now comes to answer option A. There was a lack of reliable information on it. So the reason number one is there was lack of reliable information on dementia care. Answer option B, the number of stories about poor care made it urgent. So here, the number of stories, okay, reason number two, there were too many stories about poor care, which made to take this decision urgently. Answer option C, there were enough data. They had so much of data to build an effective care plan. Now you see, little bit more quickly, but for that, you must be able to have the skill to identify what are the focal points of the questions as well as the answer options, right? Now, reason number one, there was lack of reliable information. Reason number two, there were huge quantities of stories. Reason number three, they had enough data. This is what we call as comprehension. Remember step number one, right? Step number one is all about understanding what you're supposed to find out. Now, what is step number two? Retention. Now, once you have understood everything, you have to register this information to your memory. That is what we call as retention, right? So now when you are going to be listening to the audio, okay, now you're going to be listening. So now the audio will play, right? So 31st questions they will play. The 32nd question also they will play. Now, when you're going to be listening to this audio, you must have a clear memory of the question. You must not forget what the question. So what was the question over here? The question over here is the reason why this organization decided to evaluate this particular issue. Now, when the audio is playing, right? So now the audio is going to be played, right? So when the audio is playing, so listen to me very carefully. This is one very important thing that you have to keep in mind. When the audio is playing, your eyesight, okay, your eyesight should only be in these answer options. When the audio is on, your eyesight should only be in the answer options. Your eyesight should not be in the question. The question should be in your memory. The question should be thorough. You must have a thorough memory of the question. The reason why this organization decided to examine this issue. Okay, why? So that question, that memory you should have, and when the audio is playing, your eyesight should only be in the answer options A, B, and C. And you have to listen to the audio. You have to listen to the audio with tone awareness. You have to be aware of the tone they are using, and you have to bring in your inference skills. That is your ability to listen to that audio section, reflect on it, and then you use your logical deduction skills and eliminate the wrong answer options. Right. Now, let's take a look into the audio ones again, because all right, so this is Robert Miller, right? Okay, so we have already given you access to the recorded lectures. Okay, so I put a lot of hard work in creating every single question over here. As you can see, with photos, videos, animations, explanations, translations, the record lectures, you have 24/7 access over here. So do please make sure that you're using very good use of it. Now, anyway, let's come to the 32nd question. I'm going to play the audio script once right now. Okay, so remember, when the audio is going to play, your eyesight should only be in the answer options. Okay, it should not be anywhere else.
Now let's hear the audio script.
I do a lot of work with Dementia Australia, an organisation which represents the needs of Australians living with all types of dementia and of their families and carers. It also campaigns on dementia issues and funds research. Dementia Australia decided it was the right time to examine the issue of end-of-life dementia care from the perspective of the consumer as well as from that of the healthcare professional. It's a timely initiative. We have plenty of anecdotal evidence, but not enough hard facts about what's going wrong and why the system's failing. But the current situation isn't all bad. Despite the issues I've mentioned, I've heard some wonderful examples of how palliative care has made a big difference to people's lives. Things can obviously go badly wrong if this isn't handled well, but in the right circumstances, people with dementia can reach the end of their lives peacefully and with dignity.
All right. All right. So this is actually not as difficult as it sounds. Okay. So I'll give you like very clear strategies on this particular question. Right. So we know that the answer to this one question over here is answer option A. Right. So we know comprehension. So we did comprehension and we did retention as well. So we have a thorough memory of the question, right? Now, step number 3 is detection. So let's detect what the right answer is. So for that, I think I need the audio script for this one. Robert Miller. Okay, so no issues. Here, if you have, proper knowledge on how to eliminate the incorrect answer options, this is actually a very, very manageable question over here. Right. Now we have the audio script over here. Now, why did Dementia Australia decide to examine the issue of end-of-life dementia care? Okay, so we know answer options A, lack of reliable information. B, number of stories about poor care. C, there were enough data to build an effective care plan. All right. Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look into the audio script right now. So imagine that you're sitting in the examination hall. You're sitting in the examination hall. You know, okay, supposed to listen to the reason why they decided to take. Okay, so the keywords decision. Okay, they took a decision to examine this issue, right? And your duty is to find what was the reason that made them to take this decision, right? So let's see what the speaker over here is saying. Okay, so let's take a look into the audio script right now. So the speaker is saying, I do a lot of work with Dementia Australia. So she is a person who does a lot of work with this particular organization. So it's an organization which represents the needs of Australians living with all types of dementia and their families and carers. It also, no, see, it basically means Dementia Australia. It also campaigns on dementia issues and funds research. Now, I'm going to introduce to you one particular very important term over here. So this particular information is what we call as a distractor. It's a distracting information. The OET over here, they are extremely cunning. Right? They're extremely cunning. So therefore, what they're going to do is they are going to give you in the audio, there will be information that is not at all related to the question. Now see, when you look into this particular audio section, what is it? It is just an introduction. It is an intro to this organization. Okay, it is just introducing, that is what is Dementia Australia. So it is just introducing. It's an organization that helps Australians with all types of dementia, the families it helps, the carers it helps. It also has a lot of campaigns on dementia issues and they fund research. So see over here, this information is just an introduction. So as I told you, remember when I told you before your audio begins, you must have clarity. Okay, before the audio begins, you need to have clarity. And when the audio is playing, you need to have focus. So when you're listening with that much focus in the back of your mind, your brain is telling you, I have to listen to the reason why they took this decision. So when you're listening to this audio section, you have to tell to yourself, okay, that was just an introduction to this organization, which is just a distractor. It is just trying to distract me. That information is not helping me in any manner. So you just completely have to, avoid that information. That is, not give it too much information over there, too much attention over there. That is that focusing skills you need to have. For that, you need to have clarity. So let's come to the second part. Dementia Australia decided. Now, see, this is the key word that we are all waiting for, right? They took a decision. So remember, what was the question over here? Your duty is to find why they took the decision. What was the reason for them to take this decision? So now, when the key word that we are waiting for, when they have mentioned it, now you have to become alert. Now your brain has to become extremely alert. Yes. So the keyword that I'm waiting for, decision. This organization, they took a decision. Now they're talking about the decision, and now you have to listen to understand what exactly was the reason for it. Right. Now let's see what was the decision. Okay. So Dementia Australia decided it was the right time to examine the issue of dementia care. Okay, the same words are repeating over there. From the perspective of the consumer, perspective basically means point of view. Okay, from the point of view of the consumer, who's the consumer over here? The patient. Okay, the patient is the consumer who is consuming who is consuming the services. Who is consuming the services over here? The patient is the person who's consuming. So here they're using synonyms. Okay, so here they're talking about the patient. So from the perspective of the patient, from the point of view of the patient, they are thinking, okay, from the perspective of the consumer, as well as along with that, from that of the healthcare professional, that is the person who is giving the services, that is the healthcare team over there. Now here also, okay, when you listen to this particular audio, so from here to here, when you're listening, don't you think this also, okay, it is just, warming up. Okay, it is just warming up to the answer. Don't you think? It was not entirely distracted. Here they're talking about the decision. Okay, so this entire information over here, it is what? It is a distractor. It is just an introduction over here. But this particular information, they're talking about the decision. Okay, they're talking about the decision and how they took the decision. That is, they to take this decision from the perspective of the consumer as well as the healthcare. Now, when you're listening to this particular session, the reason is not yet mentioned. Okay, the reason is not yet mentioned over there. So there you need to understand, okay, they are just warming up to the right answer. So here you have to tell, okay, this information over there, just coming to the answer, but the reason is something that I'm still waiting for. So like this, your brain should actually work. All right. So let's see. Let's keep reading. It's a timely initiative. That is, it was launched in the right time. And here they're telling we have plenty of anecdotal evidence. Okay, anecdotes. Okay, that's a slightly advanced words. Anecdotes basically means, using an short story to express a message. That is the meaning of an anecdote. That's the meaning of an anecdote. So I'll just take maybe just 1 minute time to explain to you what is the meaning of an anecdote. So one of our prime ministers, his name was Morarji Bhai Desai. Okay, was a very long prime minister of India. So he went to UK. He went to UK for a meeting. Okay, he went to UK for some kind of official visit. So he had this, our Indian Prime Minister, long back when he went to UK, he spoke with the Indian community there, right? So he said, imagine, so he said to the Indian community that you are all in very little number. Okay, that is the UK people are more. Okay, that is, we're talking about 1970s or 80s. So the UK people, that is the British people, are more in India. I mean, in UK, obviously, they are more in number, and Indians, they are very less. Okay, so Indians are very less. So he actually said this example, you have to be like sugar in milk. Okay, so this is the anecdote he actually said to the Indians. Okay, so when he went to Britain over there, he said, okay, to the Indians who are in very little amount, he said, the British people, they are the milk there, but you have to be like sugar. That is, even though you are in very little quantity, okay, when you are staying here, you have to be very sweet. Okay, so that the entire country becomes beautiful. So see, that's a very important message that he's trying to express, right? And how did he give that how did he express that message over there? He used a short story. He used a short story, that is, be like sugar in milk. Now this is what we call as anecdote. Anecdote basically means you're trying to explain a message using a small story like this. Okay, it's a slightly advanced vocabulary. So those who don't know, this is the meaning of it. Right. So here they're telling we have a lot of anecdotal evidence. We have a lot of small short stories evidence like this. That is, we have a lot of small stories of certain patients, and from that we have some evidence, but not enough hard facts about what's going wrong and why the system is failing. Now you see over here, this is the issue. Okay, the system is failing. Okay, the system is failing over here. This is the issue. What is the issue? Dementia care. Okay, dementia care, the system is basically feeling over here. Now the person is saying, okay, now see, they're warming. Okay, they took the decision, they're warming up to the answer. So here they're link, we have plenty of anecdotal evidence. Okay, so it is evidence over here, but they are all coming from small stories. Okay, this evidence over here is coming from small stories, but not enough hard facts. Okay, so here the link, not enough hard facts basically means what? There is not enough hard facts basically means what? Dependable facts, right? So you can only depend on facts that are hard. Okay, so here the person is saying whatever evidence we have, they're all coming from short stories. Okay, but we don't have dependable evidence, we don't have reliable evidence about what is going wrong. Okay, so we don't know, we know the system is failing, and we don't have the reliable information about why the system is failing. Now see why. See why over here. So the OET is giving you hints. Okay, why the system is failing. And why is the system failing over here? The system is failing because there is not much hard facts over here. Right. So here there is something called as but over here. So I'll tell you what but is very soon. And that is what we call as a contrast marker. Okay, so I need another 1 minute to explain to you what a contrast marker is, and it is extremely important OET. Now, for that, I think I need a clear piece of paper. All right, so listen to me very carefully. Contrast markers, right? Contrast markers, usually the most common contrast markers are like why, no, but, however, although, even though, on the other hand. So these type of words, okay, there are a few other small words like this. So these type of words are what we call as contrast markers, and they are extremely important when it comes to listening. Okay, listening part C. Now, what is a contrast marker? So before that, let's understand what is the meaning of contrast. Black and white, red and green, short and tall, fat and thin. What do you see when you take a look into this? What is the thing you see over here? What is the contrast? See, the contrast of black is white. The contrast of red is green. The contrast of short is tall. The contrast of fat is thin, right? As you can see over here, these are all contrasting information. That is opposite. Okay, contrast basically means what? The direct opposite. That is what we call as a contrast, right? Now, what is the meaning of a contrast marker? Contrast markers are those words, if you want, you can write this down. Words that signals a sudden shift in idea or message. This is what we call as a contrast marker. Okay, so when it comes to OET, or when it comes to any kind of narration, or even reading documents also, there are certain words, right? And what do these words do? It signals. Okay, so a contrast marker is a word that signals a sudden shift. That is, suddenly there is a shift. Okay, a completely opposite information is going to come. That is, there may be a positive information, and suddenly that information is going to shift to a negative information, or there is a negative information and suddenly it is shifting to a positive information, right? So that sudden shift is coming, but before the sudden shift comes, they will give you some contrast markers. That is these type of words that signals that particular change over here. And the most commonly used contrast marker is but. Right. Now let's take a look into this particular audio script over here. Now here, what are they saying? We have plenty of anecdotal evidence, right? So we have plenty means what? We have lots of anecdotal evidence, right? So we can say that is a positive information, right? It's a positive information. That is, we have lots of anecdotal evidence. Now, what is coming over here? The word but is coming. Now, what is but over here? That is a contrast marker. So here it is signaling that there is going to be a sudden shift from positive to negative. Now, say what is this information over here? There is not enough hard facts, and that is the negative information, right? So that information over there is a negative info. So see, very quickly, very suddenly, a positive information became a negative information. But before that, a signal word comes, which is the word but over there. And this is something that you really have to listen with a lot of attention and focus. Now the person is saying, even though we have a lot of small stories as evidence, but there is not enough reliable facts about what is going wrong and why the system is failing. So we can suspect that answer option A could be the right answer. So again, as I told you, when you're listening to the audio, your eyesight should only be in the answer options, right? So you can put a small question mark over here. There was a lack of reliable information. So what was the reason for them taking this decision? There was a lack of hard facts. That is, not lack basically means what? Not enough hard facts, right? Not enough hard facts. And this is the reason why they decided to examine the issue of dementia care failing. Right. So if you want, again, you have not yet eliminated answer option A, B, and C. So you can put a small question mark over there. Right. Nothing problem. Now let's come. But the current situation isn't all bad. Now you see here also this same, this thing is coming. Okay. What is coming over here? Here they're telling, but once again, so what is but over here? But once again is a contrast marker. But the current situation isn't all bad. So here that is a positive information. Now say it is not bad basically means what? It is positive. Whereas over here, it is a negative information. See, the system is failing. System is failing means it is a negative information over here. But over here, they're telling, see, as you can see, from negative, it became a positive, right? System is failing, negative information, but the current situation, but now they're telling, however, the present situation is not all bad. See, again, a sudden shift is coming from negative to positive. For that also, they will use a contrast marker, which is what we call as but. So you have to like train yourself. You have to train really hard for you to understand when and how these contrast markers are being used. All right. Now here, this information, now see over here, information here, what is okay? So here I'm going to help you to eliminate one answer option, right? But the current situation, be very attentive to me over here. Here they're telling the current situation is not all bad. So what does that mean? That means the situation is actually good. Okay, despite the issues I have mentioned, I have some wonderful examples of how palliative care has made big difference to people's lives. Now see this, see wonderful basically means what? Is an emotion, right? So here the writer is saying there has been wonderful examples. So it's a very positive information positive emotion that they're trying to express about what? About palliative care having made a big difference to people's lives. So what is this information telling? Big difference to people's lives. That is, they are telling that this information, this palliative care, it is helping a lot of people. Okay, it is helping a very lot. That is, the care is very good care. Now, what is answer option B over here telling? The answer option B is telling the number of stories about poor care made it urgent. Now, can we tell that the speaker is telling that they're talking about extremely poor care? No, the opposite is mentioned. So this is what we call as an extreme contradiction. That is, the answer option over here, it is an extreme contradiction to what is mentioned in the audio. So in the audio, they're talking about care, but in the audio, they're talking about excellent care. They're talking about wonderful care, right? So therefore, poor care cannot be chosen as the right answer. It is an extreme contradiction. So you can eliminate answer option B, and you suspect that A could be the right answer. So now it is either A option or it is C option. Right. Now let's keep listening to the audio now. Now here the link, things can obviously go badly wrong if this isn't handled well. But in the right circumstances, people with dementia can reach the end of their lives peacefully and with dignity. So here they're telling, again, we have to handle it very carefully. And in the right situations, people with dementia, they can, end their lives peacefully and with dignity and all they're saying. Now, what is answer option C telling over here? Answer option C is telling there was enough data on which to build a base on effective care plan. Now, is anything mentioned? Is the audio talking about any kind of care plan? No. Is it talking about any kind of base or foundation? No. Are they telling that there has been enough data? No. The opposite is mentioned, right? There is lack of hard facts. So see, over here, nothing over here is mentioned. Okay, effective care plan is not mentioned. Okay, basing on that foundation, that is enough data to build a foundation of effective care plan is not mentioned over there. So therefore, what will you do? You cannot choose answer option C. So since nothing is mentioned, C can be very, very easily eliminated. And answer option B, they're talking about poor care, and that is an extreme contradiction. So that means B also is eliminated. So what is answer option A over here? A is telling lack of reliable information. So is that mentioned? Yes. Lack of hard facts, okay, on dementia care. So therefore, since B and C is eliminated, what you suspected to be the right answer is now the correct answer. So you will choose answer option A as the right answer, right? So I'm going to play the audio just once again. And this time, so when you're going to listen to the audio, listen to the contrast markers. Okay, listen to the contrast markers. Know that there are some distracting information. Know that the word decision is going to come, and know that is when you have to become highly alert. And then listen very carefully. Again, comprehension, retention, detection, clarity, focus, logic, elimination strategy. All these things are highly necessary, right? So this is the question over here. Now I'm going to play the audio one last time, and then we'll wind it up.
Now let's hear the audio script.
I do a lot of work with Dementia Australia, an organisation which represents the needs of Australians living with all types of dementia and of their families and carers. It also campaigns on dementia issues and funds research. Dementia Australia decided it was the right time to examine the issue of end-of-life dementia care from the perspective of the consumer as well as from that of the healthcare professional. It's a timely initiative. We have plenty of anecdotal evidence, but not enough hard facts about what's going wrong and why the system's failing. But the current situation isn't all bad. Despite the issues I've mentioned, I've heard some wonderful examples of how palliative care has made a big difference to people's lives. Things can obviously go badly wrong if this isn't handled well, but in the right circumstances, people with dementia can reach the end of their lives peacefully and with dignity.
Okay, so it's more clear, right? So these are the strategies over here. Now you see, we have already given you access to the record lectures. So every single answer option, every single question, okay, with photos, videos, animations, translations, with very beautifully arranged slides and explanations I have given. You have 24/7 access. So there is no excuse to actually not get enough, high quality coaching for listening and reading. So you have 24/7 access in the app. Those who are using iPhone, through the website, you have access to it. And we also here also have given you the audio script in simpler terms, point by point translations for that. And also I have explained why this is the right answer. So I have explained, say, why A is the right answer, and I have also given explanation why B is wrong as well as C is wrong. Okay, so everything has been already done, and in live sessions with me, I help you to build the right set of skills and strategies. Right. So that is what we discussed in today's session. So to just have a small wind up of what we discussed, I'll just wind it up very quickly. So in listening part C, okay, you have to know that there is a medical expert over here, and that person will have their own opinions, they'll have their own attitudes and all. So here you have to listen from the speaker's point of view. Okay, so in part C, because you have to understand what their thoughts and feelings are about certain things. And then you have to use your 15 seconds time very, very carefully. Within 15 seconds time, there is no need to hurry. Okay. There is no need to hurry, but read it very comfortably. Okay. Just be very comfortable. Again, it may take some time. Maybe it may take 30 seconds right now, but build the keyword analyzing strategies, identification skills. Okay. Slowly, you will build it up. Focus on the focal points of the answer options. And then when the audio is playing, okay, so before that, you need to know what the stem of the question is. You need to know what your duty over here is. So here you have to be able to understand that your duty over here is to find out the reason over here. So that stem identification is very important. And then you have to comprehend the question. You have to comprehend the question, then you have to retain the question, and then you have to detect the right answer, right? So for that, you need to have focus. When the audio is playing, you need to have clarity before the audio plays, and then after this thing is done, you need to have logic to eliminate the incorrect answer options. Right. So this is how you have to basically deal with listening part C questions. Right. So what is my advice to you? Go to the print section. So we have shared you all the recorded lectures, right? So go to the Google Drive where we have shared the materials. Study materials, take the printouts of the official listening and reading materials, and once you have taken the printouts, practice them again. The audios and all we have given to you again in the